The idea of retrofitting your house for energy efficiency can be really daunting, I know, but don't worry, there's different ways you can go about it. You can blitz the whole house all at once and get it over and done with, but that will be very messy, so you might want to move out. Just remember to add the cost of the rent to your budget, otherwise you'll get a big shock at some point. The other alternative is if you're going to do any other work on your house, if you're extending or you're going up into the loft, take the opportunity because you'll be in the mess. You may even be back to the brick in places, so insulate and make it airtight while you're at it. It'll be much less disruption and it will be less expensive doing it while you're in the process. The other alternative is to get yourself a whole house plan done, but then pick it off one room at a time according to what suits you and what suits your budget. We did a combination of the last two. We were already building an extension and we'd got an eco-architect to design that, so we knew that was energy efficient. And we were extending the bathroom, so a lot of the house was impacted, so we just decided to keep going. We lived in the front room and we slept in the front bedroom, so both of those rooms were left out of it completely. When the bulk of it was done, we gave ourselves some time to get cleaned up and have a rest. And then when the weather was suitable, so we could leave the doors open, we just did the front room. And then we waited another year before we did the bedroom and included that in the thermal envelope. And it's all worked fine. The whole thing is now energy efficient and we're saving 75% of our energy usage. So was it worth the disruption? You bet your life it was. However you decide to go about it, you need to do some planning at the outset because you need to understand the different dependencies and what needs to be done when. This is where the book comes in. This gives you a really great overview and will help you understand the different elements that you need to take on. In addition to that, one possibility is to get a whole house retrofit plan done. I've sat in on a couple of these recently, so I'll do a video about them soon. But in the meantime, what happens is an assessor comes around, goes all around your house and looks at your energy bills and your consumption and works out how efficient your house is at the moment. If you're doing that, I would really recommend that you go around the house with the assessor. There are some really good conversations to be had then, and you'll learn a huge amount about your house, what's working, what isn't, what needs major work and what needs just energy hack work that will make a difference to your bills in the short term. So consider getting that done, even if you're not going to stay in the house for a long time. Don't worry, because it's become quite a good selling point to have one of these energy plans done. It stays with the house, so the people who are buying know you've been working at it and they know what they need to carry on and do. If you're trying to decide how to do it, then one way to think it through is cost versus disruption versus outlay. Now, what I mean by that is, what's the overall cost likely to be? Will you need to borrow? What if you add in the cost of borrowing? Just work out what that's likely to be. Then look at your appetite for disruption. Can you bear to live with doing one room at a time? Would you feel much better if you blitzed it and just got out of the way? Which are you willing to go with? And then the third thing is, what would be the cost of delaying? So if you need to put out money bit at a time, is that actually going to cost you more in the long run, or will it be about the same? A perfect example of that is we recently added in an extra window because we rethought the way the bathroom was working. And that was so expensive just to do one window. They're not nearly as expensive when you do them all at one go. And there are a number of things like that, things that you can absolutely do bit at a time, but other things that will need the whole house to be involved. Otherwise, it's going to be really expensive to do. So if you can balance all of those up together, it'll give you some idea of how you might move forward. Perfect example of why you need to think ahead and look at the whole piece all together before you even begin is the positioning of the heat pump. We had gas central heating before, and the water cylinder was in the middle bedroom. Now, if you want to keep it there, there's going to be more piping, and that's going to be more expensive. So we have the heat pump on the outside of this wall, and the cupboard with all of the gubbins in here right next to it. So that's the most efficient way to do it. The last thing we would have wanted is to get this whole bedroom beautifully done, external walls insulated, decorated, looking lovely, and then discover we had to put an extra cupboard in it. So just think ahead, talk with your ASHP provider and ask them how it's going to need to work. The other question to ask is, are your radiators going to work or not? Because you might need to put in bigger radiators, but this way it's vital that you can tell the provider exactly how energy efficient your house is going to be and how much insulation you're putting where. Otherwise, they might recommend the big radiators when you don't actually need them. Think through the issue of decor. The last thing you want is to do one room completely, get it looking absolutely beautiful, and then do something in the next room that disrupts the doorways and makes a mess of some of your decor. So think all of that through and what's going to be needed when. So it may be that you live with some of the old decor for a bit until the next room is done, and then you blitz and get everything looking lovely at the end. Another area to consider is to clarify the age of your house. If your house is built before 1930 and is breathable, then you're going to need to use different materials. I've done a video on breathability, so I'll put a link up there for you to look at if you haven't seen it already. But it will mean that you can't just go down to Buttles and get some petrochemical based insulation, because it's not good for your house and you'll end up with condensation. One of the things with providers of sustainable insulation is that they deliver countrywide, and you need to allow a bit of time. So you need to know what their lead time is. So contact different ones. As the two I know, Unity Lime and Ecological Building Systems. I'll put their link in the description below so you can have a look. Find out what their lead time is, and also find out what's the implications there of ordering bit at a time or ordering a lot more at one go. If you've got space to store stuff and you'll be needing it relatively soon, that might be worth doing. What we discovered is the cost of the pallet. I don't know why, but they deliver on a pallet, and that seems to make it quite expensive. So you can take a whole pallet at one go rather than part of a pallet. It makes a difference to your bills. Once you've got one room done, then you need to think about how the house is going to function. So you want to keep the heat in that room, and you want to cut it off from the much colder parts of the room. So for example, when we'd done the whole house and the bedroom was still incomplete, then we put a door closer on. You get these automatic door closers, you know, the things that stick at the top of the door. And every time you walk out, it closes automatically behind you. What that does is it cuts off the cold space from the thermal envelope, which is the whole warm part of the house. So think through how you're going to manage the cold bits and the warm bits together. Otherwise, you won't get the benefit of the work that you've done. And while you're in that place where you've got some warm and some cold, then you can look at energy hacks and see what could you do in the short term that would make even the colder rooms warm? So at least you're not living in icebox to really cosy place and moving constantly from one to the other. The step-by-step process also requires you to be well educated and to understand the whole process, because depending how long a gap you have between each piece that you're doing, you might actually end up with different builders. So somebody needs to have the overview and be able to bring the new builders on board so they understand the levels that you're working to and just exactly how you want it to be. So you need to be the continuity of this process. So learn, educate yourself, read the book, ask me any questions you need. I'm very happy to help, and if I don't know, then I'll see what I can find out for you.